Lindemann with skills in pills. Okay. This is, of course, a supergroup. Two-person supergroup. Can you really call a supergroup that super if there's only two people in it? I think you can, considering this is a supergroup that involves Till Lindemann from Rammstein and Peter Tagtgren from Hypocrisy. Pretty super group, at least if you ask me. If you're going to have two individuals that are going to do something like this makes a lot of sense. Especially whenever you consider what Peter has done, aside from Hypocrisy, with bands such as Pain. So, this is actually a bit of a match made in heaven, probably a wet dream for more people than they think, considering these folks both have a bit of a root in industrial metal and definitely like a little bit of heaviness to it. Now, with these two individuals, a couple of different things come to mind. Of course, this was recorded in the Abyss Studios, which is Peter's studio, and the thought is what side is really going to purvey between these two monoliths? Are we going to have that very thick industrial sound that you hear on Rammstein's music, or are you going to hear more of that trademark Abyss sound that you hear in music from bands such as Hypocrisy? And the answer is you don't have to worry about that because there's a combination of both on here. The balance is actually quite nice. This is one where that trademark Abyss hum is still there right within the same industrial idea that really pervades throughout Rammstein's music. Now, if there's one thing I will say about this is that lyrically, this is not an album for the faint of heart. This is not one where if you are easily offended by concepts such as anal sex, concepts such as fat individuals, concepts such as even abortion, this is probably not the album for you. Golden Showers is another thing that you're going to mention on here, or see mentioned on here. Hell, it's even a song title. This is an extremely interesting album in that regard. Lyrically speaking, this is an album that is constructed and sung completely in English, with the exception of a couple of German words being thrown in there, mainly just for effect, mainly to give some of the lyrics a little bit of added punch, almost as though it's being used a bit tongue-in-cheek to remind everybody that Till is actually from a German band. Musically speaking, this is an album that follows industrial metal protocol. It's definitely one that will satisfy members of Rammstein 100%, and members of Pain will also hear the familiarity that they are used to. It's also something, though, where they go a little bit above and beyond. In the song Cowboy, we hear the presence of a banjo, which is interesting whenever it comes to this style of metal, to say the least. We've also, within this album, seen the use of a children's choir, and considering the subject matter and some of the lyricism, it's a strange concept that feels so... It feels like corrupting the youth, and it's kind of awesome. I'm not going to lie about that. Other things that I noticed musically are just strange little nuances, whether it be lyrically or whether it be with the music by itself. Lady Boy, the very second track on this album, reminds me immediately of the Shawn Michaels theme song. It reminds me of Sexy Boy. Sexy Boy! You're going to have to listen to the lyrics to this one to really understand fully what I mean, and also know what I'm talking about with HBK Shawn Michaels. But it's also, whenever you have tracks such as Fish On and Fat, which immediately to me sounds like it's the industrial metal version of Fat Bottom Girls, even though it has no actual trait that is resemblant of it. It's actually just something where they're talking about how they like it fat, and yeah. And then in Praise Abort, which is near the end of the song, we hear something very simple. I have 6 children and I hate it. Yeah, it's kind of funny. Sort of. It's really, really strange. So this is an album that's filled with a lot of quirk. This is one that is filled with a lot of nuance. This is one that definitely is not trying to tread the PC line. It's instead one that's meant to kind of be a bit ridiculous, kind of go the high road of some of the side projects, say, for example, of Ministry. It's definitely one where I immediately think of Pussifer, even though they do things like this, but the name alone kind of strikes that idea, especially with album titles such as V is for Vagina. But whenever you consider what some of Al from Ministry has done, it's definitely something that feels like it's right along those lines, and just being offensive for offense's sake and just not giving two shits. This is an album that's actually very good at doing that, but at the same time it's also an enjoyable listen. The music itself flows so nicely, and the lyricism is so clear, and it's even one that is delivered with a serious German accent within it, but still you can even hear a twinge of maybe a smile being cracked or a chuckle even being uttered. This is definitely something that was really a lot of fun, I think, for these two individuals, and something that, personally, I hope they continue, because this is a pretty neat project, and it's a very listenable album. It's an album that flows well. We even get That's My Heart to end this, which is almost kind of ballady, but this is where we hear the children's choir, and this is where we hear some other voices, and they are actually going above and beyond with a couple of these tracks. It's very, very well executed, is the overall point. I'd probably give this album a 79 out of 100. There's a lot of quirk, but it's not something that's going to drive you to want to buy 17 copies and distribute them to all of your friends, or buy 20 copies and hand 19 of them to people who you know will be deliciously offended and just watch their reaction. I think this is a disc instead that you're going to, it's going to have a very niche market to it, but it's also going to be one that's going to be enjoyed by the members of that niche market, and I think they're going to get a little bit of a chuckle out of it, but I don't see this really blowing up and becoming a massive, massive thing, but I have been wrong before. I think that the album's flow certainly works to its benefit. I also feel that these two musicians really have been going at it and been producing music for so long that it really was not much of a question whether or not this was going to have solid ground and the capability to succeed. It was more the question of how it was going to do that. But I want to know what you guys think about Skills in Pills by Lindemann. I would love to hear what you have to say in the comments below, whether or not it's because I butchered German, or whether or not it's because you think I've butchered this review. Let me know in the comments below, and I think tomorrow we're going to talk about Thy Art Is Murder. I think tomorrow is the day. What do you think? Let me know.